Alright, so this is part of my endgame series. So this is Marshall versus Emmanuel Lasker. It is black to move. And basically, Lasker was black. So if you're looking at this position, what would you say the result of this endgame is most likely to be? True, boy, true. What do you guys think this will be? A draw? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Whoever gets their rook active first. I'm liking what I'm reading. So basically, to a beginner, the position may look like a draw, but the advanced player will realize immediately that there are great possibilities for black to win. Not only because he has the initiative, but because of white's underdeveloped queen side and the fact that a bishop in such a position is much better than a knight because it is an open position, right? So it will take some time for white to bring his rook and knight into the fray, and black can utilize it to obtain an advantage. So there are two options for black in this position. The most evident and the one that most players would take is to advance pawn to c5 and then c4, immediately in conjunction with the bishop check at a6, and then be able to move the rook out. But what Lasker did first is just simply play rook b8. So let's set this on legal moves only. So he does play rook b8. Yeah. Alright, rook to b8. Bring that rook out. White has to defend with b3. And then black plays rook to b5. And this rook is very active on the 5th rank and can torment white's pawns by moving to a5, c5, or even h5. So a lot of possibilities here. And, you know, all this makes sense. So c4, and this makes sense because it avoids attacks on c2 and also closes down the a6 to f1 diagonal. So basically it's just, you know, activating his piece. And you don't really want to play d takes c3 because then you'll be left with double pawns on the c file, right? So you don't want to en passant. It's not an you see en passant, you always want to en passant angle. En passant is not a forced move. Alright? It is not a forced move. Don't always en passant. Like in this position, it's not a good idea to play en passant. Yeah. So here, actually, rook to h5 is a good move because you are just attacking the h2 pawn. This is true, Lumpy. I agree. En passant is hard to resist, but that does not mean you gotta go for it, okay? It does not mean you gotta go for it. Sometimes you can walk away from a fight. Sometimes not taking the en passant means you get more. It's like if somebody, you know, spat on your face, but instead of you spitting back on their face, what you can do is report him to the principal and then he can get suspended. So then you want even more. Exactly. Okay, so 60? What's wrong with that? You can walk away from a 5 but not from en passant. No, you can walk away from en passants too. Alright, so King G1. We don't do that in Poland? Well, too bad. Well, if you spit on his face and report him, then you guys are both gonna get in trouble, right? Alright, so King G1, then C5. Just protecting this. So on 92, this is the part when you move your king. Get your king to the game. So black's idea is clear. He wants to play bishop g4 to bring his king up to e5. Bishop g4 stops the knight from coming to f3. Yeah. Alright, so now rook f1, probably not the best idea, because this actually, you know, just helps black with his plan. Just keep his king in the center. So after a3, black plays rook h6. He's always trying to keep this rook on a file in which it can travel across the whole board. And this is a really cool concept that you guys should be following as well. So this game is from 1907 between Marshall and Manuel Lasker from New York. Played in New York in 1907. Lasker was a pretty cool dude. Yeah. Two very famous people. Lasker is black, though. And, okay. So anyways, rooks go new across the board. Exactly. Zoom, zoom. Alright, so after rook h6, h4, zoom, zoom. Rook on a6 now. Probing at the weakness on a3. Rook a1 to defend. Then bishop to g4. King to f2. King to e6. And just trying to, you know, stay with the plan, right? Once you capture that e4 pawn, all of white's pawns will start dropping a little bit more. Alright, so now a4, king to e5, king to g2, rook to f6, rook to e1, d3, rook to f1, and king to d4. And the king has started infiltrating. Hell yeah. Good stuff, good stuff. So this is one of those things that you do kind of want to do, you know? Just get your king super active. Make sure your opponent's pass pawn can't really move. This king is doing a chat job. Yeah, a very active king. In any part of chess, like during any part of chess, right? You always want to worry about piece activity, well, not usually king activity, but at some point your king has to become active as well. Exactly, Lumpy, exactly. So king to d4. And then after rook takes f6, g takes f6, king to f2, c6, a5, a6. And this is the part where there's Zugzwang, right? So any pawn move loses a pawn. All of these pawn moves lose a pawn. A knight move would give up the pawn on e4. And king e1 allows king to c3. So white's in a lot of trouble here. So white plays knight f1, king takes e4, king to e1, bishop to e2, knight to d2, and then after king e3, knight to b1. Now there's f5. And basically, black is probably just going to go for the h4 pawn at this point. This is the principle of two weaknesses, yeah? This is the principle of two weaknesses and quite literally in play. You already have one pass pawn, you're up a pawn, you're going to create another pass pawn, and then you'll be winning. So good stuff, good stuff. Alright, now after knight b1, king to f3, knight to c3, king takes g3, knight to a4, f4, knight takes c5, f3, knight e4 check, king to f4, knight to d6, c5, b4, c takes b4, c5, b3, knight c4, king g3, knight to e3, b2. This knight is just unable to defend against this promotion as well as this promotion. So you can see why knights are not so good when they're like knights are not so good when they're pawns on both sides of the board, right? Bishops are much better for that. So that's why knights are usually not as good as bishops in endgames, especially if they're on both sides of the board. Jesus Christ, my voice is like starting to go. Whew. Teaching is exhausting. Teaching is actually exhausting. It's a good kind of exhaustion though. Yeah. Because it's like, people learned. Feels good, man.